No one has a monopoly on the truth. Our version of our own truths are based on our own lived experiences. In this space, we welcome different perspectives to learn, unlearn, and enlighten. Welcome to The Lantern. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Lantern. I'm so excited to have Yasmin Pozzobon on my podcast today. Yasmin is a professional architect and she's a director at JY Studio, which is her own architectural firm. JY Studio specializes in a variety of properties, including residential, luxury, and commercial. I will now hand over to Yasmin to give us a better introduction about who she is, more about JY Studio. Welcome to the Lantern Podcast, Yasmin.
Hi, Kani. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. This is my first podcast, so I'm really excited about it. As you mentioned, I'm the co-founder and director of JY Studio, which is an architectural firm that focuses on multidisciplinary buildings, as well as we focus a lot on rezoning as well, helping people in the property industry rezone their projects so that they can get more bulk on their site, so that I will explain this through more questions that we'll go through. But we do assist a lot of property owners with design all the way through to construction. And we focus on absolutely everything architecture. So if you have a renovation, and a lot of people ask me this, like, can I come to you for a renovation? Yes, absolutely. We do renovations. We do new builds. We've done sports academies. We've done residential. We've done mixed use buildings, which is basically it incorporates retail, office, residential, all in one building. So yeah, that is what JY Studio does, and I'm very excited to have started this company.
Wow. I mean, I didn't realize what an impressive portfolio you had, and you definitely didn't share all of that with me. But you've done a way better job of explaining it. But if you can take a step back, as you're aware, most of my listeners obviously have, I think, more of a legal background. But I was very interested in having you on my podcast as someone who has also founded their own company. So let's backtrack. Take me back to why architecture? Because you seem to be eating, breathing, and sleeping all things architecture. So what is it about architecture?
So I'll go back to where I started to want to study architecture all the way to today. And honestly speaking, when I was in school, I was unsure of what I wanted to do. I didn't know that architecture was for me, so I wasn't born knowing that this is the direction I was going to go in. And I went through quite a few like career journeys, and I did job shadowing at different architectural firms. Um, and the reason I did this is because I really enjoyed all aspects of school. And mainly, I enjoyed mixing art with science. Although I never took art in school, I really enjoyed it. And science was also physical science specifically was also a subject that I enjoyed, and maths. I loved maths. So, so I thought about, well, actually, I spoke to one of my teachers in high school, which was my science teacher, and I really, really enjoyed her, Mrs. Haupt. And she actually said to me the one day, because I said to her, I'm very confused. It was grade 11. I don't know what I'm going to apply for. What do I do? And I was like starting to stress out. And she said, give me some time to think about this. Let's see how you like perform in class. Let's just see, like, don't rush into anything. And the one day she pulled me aside and she said, Yasmin, I really think you should look into architecture. And I said to her, well, that's actually makes sense. And I had never said it to her before, where I had gone for job shadowing at architectural firms, and this kind of like was my confirmation that I needed to apply for architecture. So then I applied for the degree and alongside two other degrees, and I did get accepted for architecture. And let me tell you, it was not an easy journey. It was extremely difficult.
So
Um,
I love in your show notes, you said that you and your friends have joked about calling it Archie torture.
correct.
I mean, I've never really heard that. So why was it torturing you?
It was absolutely torturous. And we did have this joke, everyone in our class, actually, we had this joke that because basically architecture is project based. So everything you do and every aspect of design that you apply your mind to, it's actually never finished. So you always feel like you're stressing to finish, to meet deadlines. Although, like, I would submit projects and I'd still look at them and I'll be like, but I'm not finished. I'm not done. Like, I could do so much more. So, because it's project based, even in the real world, that's generally how it is. It isn't always completely finished until even like when the building is done, you'll go ahead and you'll snag it and um, come up with a snag list, and then you need to complete the project still. So even when it's done, it's not done.
For the non-architectures, what does
Yes.
snag mean?
Okay, so a snag is basically you'll go into a building and a tile has chipped, or like the paint is not applied properly to the walls, or structurally something you feel or you see is not right, or a window is cracked. So these things need to be replaced or just made good so that the building can operate properly and absolutely be perfect for the end user. Um, so yeah, architecture came from basically us never being able to finish projects, and we would sit hours and hours and have sleepless nights. And honestly speaking, there was points during my studies where I was like, this is no longer for me. I can't do it. Like, I cannot do this anymore. And I wanted to drop out. And in my honors year, actually, I there was a stage where I literally prayed about it. And I was like, God, if I need to carry on in this career path, then please show me by giving me an A in a specific subject, which was design. And and I had never got an A in design. So for me, it was like a big thing. Like, if this is going to happen, then I will carry on this path. And literally that same semester, I got the A in design, and I was like, okay, I've got my sign. I'm going to carry on. I actually get goosebumps speaking about it.
I mean,
So,
I loved a lot of things about your story. And I think that ties into us going a little deeper into purpose, because I think that based on how you've told the story, it almost feels like architecture pulled you in, because it wasn't something that you said you were exposed to in your early in your early days. So do you think that it's just something that was already embedded in you? Do you think it was already written in your path that you would be an architect?
so I never knew the answer to this until, well, when I started studying architecture, that when I was going through my dips of wanting to drop out, I spoke to my parents, and they both wanted to actually become architects, and they never did. But it was just so weird that both of my parents, this is what they wanted to do. And um, my dad went into the business realm, so he um, carried on with business and imports and exports. Also my brother, actually, he also wanted to study architecture, but he went into the medical field. And my sister did interior design. So it's like you said, like, was it engraved in me? And possibly yes, because my entire family was wanting to study this, and I was the only one that managed to, and I'm grateful for it, being able to do it. So yes, I think so.
I mean, I really love that you were the one to go down that path for your family. So I think now is an appropriate time for me to ask you about you. You're not only just now in in architecture realm, you've now also combined the entrepreneurship element to it. So did you always envision that you would be an entrepreneur?
Yes, I definitely did. That I can say, whatever I got into, I knew I did want to do on become an entrepreneur. And the reason behind that is seeing my dad grow while I was growing up. He provided for our family. He had his own business, and he was at the same time present in our lives, which is something that really wanted me to start my own business. Um, because if you don't have your own business, I feel, especially in the architecture industry, you're not really present in your family's life, in your friend's life. It becomes a lot about that specific company, which is what I felt with a lot of the firms that I worked for. And I'm very grateful for having to gain the experience that I did.
Mm.
But I just knew that being my own boss, if we want to call it that, would actually allow me to live my passion of becoming an architect, but as well as having balance in my life to do more, and be more present in my family's life and my friends' life. So being an entrepreneur allows you to do that. But at the same time, you just have to find the balance, because being an entrepreneur, you never stop, because you're obviously focusing on your business and you constantly want to grow it. So if someone had to come to me at 9 o'clock at night and send me a message and be like, let's meet tomorrow morning because I have an amazing possible project to work with, I'd want to say yes. And then it does go into like your family time, but at the same time, it's your business you want to focus on to allow you to have that family time. So, yeah.
Amazing answer. So you've touched on just always being on. And I think that that's something that I also struggle with, is drawing that boundary between the business and myself. And I mean, I don't know. I always joke about, I think I used to work hard when I was working for other people, but when you work for yourself, it's very different because your hours are no longer set. And you're in charge of your acquisitions, direction. So what would you say was maybe some of the challenging parts of transitioning from being an employee to being your own boss?
To be honest, I find that working in the architecture industry and even studying architecture, it's really it's taught me a lot of self-discipline, where I was always everything I did was about my degree. Everything I did was about my work. I was with my previous firms. I would sometimes even call it, I was an architect on call. So, like, sometimes I'd have to cancel plans to reach a project deadline. So, I think this actually taught me a lot to be able to go into my own business and be quite strict with my time, and but at the same time not be strict in a way that I wouldn't like give back time for myself. So what I mean by that is focusing on myself as well, by like doing things that we would not do if we didn't have the time to do them. So where where I feel like architecture in general, working in the industry, it really did teach me and it did prepare me for this type of environment. And I'm really grateful for it. And I think the experiences I've had have taught me that. So the transition wasn't too difficult for me. Um, so I've been quite blessed that it has been that way. Yeah, it's just I've had to be hard working from the get go, which it's just been now, like you said earlier, engraved in me. So yeah.
Okay, that's quite interesting. So if I'm correct in understanding, would you say that you've always had a high level of autonomy as an employee? So that's sort of just translated into you having your own firm.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly that's perfect how you've said it.
Okay. That's very interesting. I think like in the architecture space, one thing I didn't realize is the level of autonomy that you would have over your projects. Because I guess like in the legal space, it's quite different because we work sort of like in a structured team structure and there's a hierarchy and layers and a lot more supervision. Whereas it seems like with architecture, you are in charge of your own projects. Am I correct
So,
in understanding the
so,
working sort of structure?
so you are definitely, and even if you're working for a firm, you would be assigned tasks that you will be in charge of.
Hmm.
So even if it is a window or door schedule, it would be assigned to you and you would take responsibility of that, whether it's for a multi story building or a single story building. It's different elements of design, different elements of working drawings, construction, whatever it is, would be assigned to you, and you could obviously be in charge of those. But at the same time, you need to think of the building as a whole. You need to always think of it as in unison. So if you drawing something in plan, you have to think about how is it going to look in elevation? How is it going to look when someone's standing on the other side of the road and photographing this building? So you can't just, so in architecture, we often say that form follows function or function follows form, but I actually believe they have to follow each other. And that's why it
What
becomes
exactly does that all mean? Form following function.
okay.
For-
So if you're looking at a space, so let's just take a typical space like a house. If your functions need to be, let's say, grouped together, so your kitchen, dining, lounge will be grouped together, your bedrooms, let's say, will be upstairs, and they'll have their ensuite. So these are the functions of your house, and how do you use them? What are the functionalities of them? And then how do these different functions create the form of your building? So how do they actually, if you had to take the living space and the bedrooms and now look at it together, what do they look like as an entire building? So in 3D, what do they look like? What does the form of the building look like? The shape of the building? Um, so that's why I always do say that form and function should follow each other. So whereas a lot of people will make one a hierarchy of the other, and I've just always believed it should be more balanced, more together, instead of completely like thinking of them separately. So
I love that you take that holistic approach on your projects. And that's quite interesting. But I think that sort of to me sounds like it comes down to mindset. Because even in terms of your mindset, if you look at something in isolation versus looking at that in relation to the broader picture, that's when I think you can sort of get lost in maybe sort of like a negative mindset. Whereas if you look at something as an isolated case as opposed to the holistic, I think that there's a you have to have a good balance and interplay between the two. So I love that architecture has really formed your mindset. Um, as a segue to my next question, how would you say you take care of yourself? Because you've obviously explained the demands of having your own firm, but you've also said that you try and balance and have time for family and friends. So, what are some of those self care practices that you tap into?
so I actually try to practice quite a bit of self-care, and I'm not gonna lie, when working for a firm, it wasn't easy. There was a stage where I had really bad anxiety, and I didn't even want to wake up in the morning, where I was like, oh, another day of work. And my mindset was just not there. Like I was not present even when I was with my family, or let's say my mom even had to give me a call. I'd just like be so off, and I'd just like want to put the phone down, just not have the time of day. And I realized that, and this is actually what pushed me to start my own business, because I was in that negative mindset, and I was like, this is not me. I've never been this person. Why have I become this person? So, and I realized it was tied to the demands of the job. So I realized if I had to give this same time, the same capacity of time, love, attention, excitement to my own entrepreneurial business, then I can make this work for myself. And my sister actually is the one that pushed me to do it, because I was so scared to just take that leap and focus on my own business. And she said, Yasmin, just do it. Like, if you're not going to do it, she's actually said it to me that if you don't take the leap, God isn't going to put these projects in front of you. But if you do, then you will see how it will just start rolling for you, and God will pave the way for you. And that is exactly what happened. So self-care is one of the main reasons I left, and it's because I didn't have the time of day to spend on myself, never mind my family, my husband, my parents, my friends. I didn't have the time for anything. So what I did decide to do when I left is I'm going to definitely go to gym in the mornings, because that is something I've loved since I was a child. I've loved physical activity. So um, get my gym done in the morning, come back, have something to eat, get to my work, and be able to like get the ball rolling with my work, attend to my meetings, go to site, whatever I need to do, have it as my between. So I start my work at 9, because now I can go to gym a bit earlier. And then I'll finish at like 5, 6, sometimes 7, sometimes even longer, but depending on projects. And then during my lunch breaks, I actually always wanted to also learn the piano. So my parents bought me a piano for Christmas. And during my lunch breaks, I will learn how to play the piano literally through an app on my phone. And also, my husband is Italian,
Yeah.
and I've also taken on to study Italian, but this I've been doing for 3 years. I'm hoping to pass the exam soon. um, but these are all self-care routine things that I think are important, even though you're learning a different language or you're learning a different hobby. Like, these are what things that make you happy and things that you should do for yourself. If going for a run at 5 o'clock in the morning is going to make you happy and just charge those endorphins in your body, then go ahead and do it, because you need that in order to carry on with the rest of your day. Because if you are constantly in a negative mindset, you're not going to be as productive. So do the things you love for you. I think it's really important.
You have said so much, and I'm going to just try and break down a little bit. But at the beginning, when you said that, you were turning into somebody that you didn't know because you were spiraling in that negative mindset and not having enough time for yourself. How long do you think that situation perpetuated for, up until you had the hard stop line of, okay, I can't do this anymore?
I would say over a year. It was quite a long amount of time. It wasn't like, oh, I'm feeling like this for a month, I'm gonna quit. No, I gave myself time to actually see, is it a period of work or is it gonna be for a long period? Because then I won't be able to handle it, and I actually don't want to be able to handle it, because I'm changing as a person. So then when I realized that that was the case, and um, I realized also a lot of people think that if you go to a psychologist, you have this negative connotation attached to that. Whereas I actually went to one and she really helped me, and she made me realize that, like I said, it wasn't me, it was what I was doing. And I won't lie, I loved the work I did. It was just maybe like too much in too little time. So, like I said, once you apply that too much to your own business in too little time or too much time, then you'll see how much you will succeed for yourself. So, um, yeah, it was something I knew I just couldn't do it for much longer. It was about a year, and it wasn't worth doing if I wasn't going to develop as a person.
Yeah, a year is a long time, but I do think that that's an accurate amount of time to assess things. That's usually how long I always give myself when it comes to my things. Because, like you say, you don't want to quit within a month, but if after a year things haven't changed, and I think you kind of have to look at it and then ask yourself the tough questions. But I think, as you said, a lot of people I think are scared to ask themselves the question because I think we don't like the answer. You
Mm.
already knew the answer. And it's interesting to me that you say that people have negative connotations when it comes to going to psychologists. Is that something that is embedded within the architectural industry, like just stigmas around mental health, or was that within your friendship circle? Where exactly was the resistance coming from?
I just think it's not like a friendship circle or work or anything. I just think generally the world is they tend to see, like you say, exactly the perfect word for it. There's a stigma around being mentally unstable. Um, so it's not something that one or two people say. It's just how it is in general life, where if you go to a psychiatrist or psychologist, is there something wrong with you? No, you actually, I believe that you actually realize like what is going on. For instance, if you had a flu, you would, or if you had a chest infection, you would go to an ENT. So, you just need to realize what is wrong and who do you need to seek help for. Just as, let's say, you would need to design a building, who would you seek help for? You would ask me, an architect. So if I need legal advice, depending on like what type of legal advice, I would come to you. So it's just when it comes to sickness, you almost like there is a negative stigma around it, but I just feel there shouldn't be. And I think people are opening up a lot more to it now, which is great. Um, so the world is heading in a better direction in that sense. Um, yeah.
I mean, thanks for sharing your story, just about your own journey when it came to, going to a psychologist and speaking through your difficulties. And I think that it's something that a lot of people undervalue. Because if you don't have that self awareness when you're going into that negative spiral, that's when I think it gets a bit more overwhelming to deal with. And to me, it sounds like you had a good support system, like having your sister there, someone who's known you your whole life. Okay, obviously
Mm.
now the people who are listening will realize that I do know your family. So I do know your
Yeah.
sister. um, you having that great relationship with your sister and having somebody in your corner telling you this is not you, you know. And I must say, for me, I think the biggest lesson I learned last year is you can do what you love in a way that makes sense to you. You don't have to conform to doing what you love in a certain way or do it the way everyone is doing it, especially where you are the one being compromised and you're not happy and you're run down and you're burnt out. It's possible to do it in a way that makes sense to you and you can take care of yourself. But in your view, what do you think is the impediment that people see in just asking themselves the hard questions and having that like self reflection moment of maybe it's not doing things that are not good for them in the long run?
So it's actually very interesting what you say about doing it in a way that you feel makes sense to you, because I think it's so important as a human. people do things in different ways. We all have different personalities. We all have different styles of leadership. We all have different outlooks on life, different history, different. So we all come from these different backgrounds and have these different perspectives of life. So I think it just depends. You just need to be honest with yourself. So if you're not feeling, my soul is not within my body, like if you are not literally like if you're not like feeling that, if you're not realizing that for yourself, if your soul doesn't make you happy, then you need to do something about it. And that's just something you as an individual need to realize. It's not for anyone else to say. Obviously, outsiders will realize, like, Yasmin, oh wow, you've changed. Like, this isn't you. Like, what's wrong? They'll ask these questions, and those are the types of questions when I got asked, I started reflecting. And that's why I was like, okay, well, if not just my sister, but my mom, but my husband, but my friends are asking me these questions, you have to realize there is something wrong, and you just do need to dwell in it a bit deeper and realize what it is, and just have your head on your shoulders and know that there is a way out. There is a way that you can make a difference in your own life and be positive and just push through it, because if you don't push through it yourself, no one else is going to do it for you.
I love that. And this is what I now say is that no one is coming. No one is coming to save you. No one is coming to align you. No one is coming to find your purpose. Like, it's one of those things that people don't realize. You are sat there waiting for someone who I'm not sure who that person is. Like, these things have to come from you. They have to come from the inside. But as I say, for me, I think it's people just not knowing that it can be done in a different way. I love one of the things you said when you said your sister said to you, if you don't start, God or the universe is not going to be able to meet you with what you need. Do you think that, well, let me rephrase. What would you say to somebody who may not be feeling as brave or who may not have the same sort of faith?
So a lot of people don't feel as brave, and it's okay not to, because maybe then that's not your time, and your time will come. Then a lot of people don't feel that they need to be entrepreneurs, and that's okay as well. You don't Not everybody is built to be an entrepreneur, and there's nothing wrong with that. So there is companies that need employers. So you just have to know what it is that you want, and you need to know how are you going to you need to actually have a plan of how you're going to reach your goal. Whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're an employer, it doesn't matter. Whatever makes you happy, just make sure that you have a plan for it and you're doing something every day to try reach your goal.
I love that. And as you spoke about in your previous statement about different leadership styles. So what would you say leadership looks like to you, and how do you embody and create that leadership environment within your own architectural firm?
So leadership, I always feel I don't really want to. So, how I think about leadership is that I never want it to be top down. So, I always want, if I'm a leader, I must be on the same level as whoever I choose to employ and whoever I actually even look up to. I don't ever want to see myself as higher as anyone, because it just makes me feel uncomfortable to to be in that like higher position. So I would rather like be my type of leadership style is being level with other people and just understanding that I was too in their position one day. So giving people the opportunity, and so many times when I used to like look for a job, um it would be we require X amount of experience, and especially when I first started out. So as I finished my degree and I went into looking for work, people wanted 5 to 10 years experience. I'm like, but how am I going to get that if you don't give me, if I don't start at level one?
Yeah.
So it's just taking those life lessons that I went through and applying it to people that want to learn, and saying to myself, okay, I need to be able to teach someone and lead someone in the direction as if I was in their shoes and I was wanting to grow and become an entrepreneur or carry on working for a company. Um, so I just also another thing with leadership is you always have to remember that people are different. Some people are more emotional, some people are more hard-headed, some people are softer, some people are harder. So you need to be able to actually tell what type of person are you dealing with. If it's a softer person, then deal with them softly. It's okay. There's nothing, you don't have to always be hard on people. Even if it is a hard person having a dip and also becoming soft, give them the opportunity, give them the time to feel their emotions, because a lot of the time with work and working for companies specifically, you almost like feel as if you don't want to be a weakling. So you don't want to allow yourself to feel, but we are human, we all have to feel. And as a leader, you have to understand how people feel in order to lead them the right way.
You've said an interesting thing at the end there where you said you have to understand how people feel. How do you think you make that statement a reality? Like, what steps do you practically take to understand how people in your organization may be feeling?
So generally speaking, I like to build relationships. So from getting to know someone, you will understand their personalities, you will understand basically their emotional levels. And so that is the approach you take. So you learn about their families, you learn about their personal lives, you learn about, and obviously not a lot of people don't want to disclose a lot about their personal lives. I'm not saying go and ask people the intricate details, but just get to know someone
Yeah.
before you try to like lead them in a way that actually may not even work for them. Get to know them first, allow them the opportunity to ask you the right questions, because if they don't ask you, and no question is a stupid question. So if someone asks me about, I used to ask a lot of stupid questions, and that's okay. But again, I was also lucky where I was taught by people that I worked with, that I was asking, even though to me now it could be a silly question, back then I was learning. So just, yeah, allow people to ask you questions, to get to know people, to allow them to speak to you and build relationships. So that's how you do it.
I love that heart centered leadership and that human to human leadership, because I do think that, it's very important to realize that at the end of the day, when you're dealing with people, people are just people and people are emotional, and it's okay to feel emotions and everybody feels emotion. And that whole thought group of, you'll be a weakling and all of these things, I think that it is perpetuating a negative connotation around emotions, because just because you're stoic doesn't necessarily make you the strongest person either. And it's just because you cry all the time doesn't mean that you're
Exactly.
weak either. But that's why I think for me and with Seize the Light, and why we're very much into helping people with emotional regulation, is I do think that that is at the heart of all this human to human building and human to human interaction. Because as soon as you have a good handle on your own emotions and your own emotional regulation, you're able to also handle other people a lot better. And to me, that's something that's quite important, that especially for yourself, like you're in a leadership position. So if you are all over the place emotionally, that negatively impacts the people around you. But to me, I love, it sounds like you have a good handle and understanding about how your emotional level may be impacting the people around you. So you're operating at a level which makes sense for you and also for them, which is helping your company develop and sort of curate a healthy working environment, which I do really love and admire that. Um,
Thank you.
so let's talk about setbacks and failures. Because, of course, within the entrepreneurial space, we know day one, we think it's going to be amazing. We're like, we're going to get all the clients, we're going to have all the business. And then it's like, it's not that easy because, again, when you were an employee, there was a lot of things you didn't have to worry about that now you have to worry about. So, what are some of how if you're comfortable to share some of the setbacks that you face, please do. If not, then you can just talk about how maybe you overcome any setbacks that you face.
Um, so it's difficult to think of like setbacks on the spot, but I never take setbacks as failure. I always think of, because I'm the type of person that never wants to stop learning either. So if I'm not learning, then I'm not developing, right? So if if I'm not failing or if I'm not being set back, then I'm not facing the challenges that I need to for maybe like a bigger, better project. And so I never, like I said, I never take setbacks as failure, but rather as a learning curve because um, this is how you learn. So through making mistakes and obviously not too many mistakes and not like speaking the wrong things where the whole building goes down, but through making these, having these setbacks, you are able to learn from them and you are able to just grow from that. And while you have these setbacks, you have to remain positive as well. So don't always just say, oh no, but one step forward, 10 steps back. It doesn't matter because at the end of the day, you're still moving forward. Um, Even if it's one step forward, 10 steps back, it's still 9 steps ahead of where you used to be. So it's just taking that and trying to apply positivity to something that's held you back, and positivity in a way that, okay, now I've learned from this, how do I move forward? And now, how next time do I apply it so that I don't get set back in that way again?
I love that you have a positive outlook on setbacks and you rather see it as something that has to happen in order to take you to the next level. And that's something that I love. And now my favorite, one of my favorite, motivational quotes is that trying almost always gets you to the next level. So I don't focus on the outcome because that's something that you actually don't have control over. You have control over moving from, uh, ground zero or, your initial spot. That's your responsibility and you owe it to yourself to put one foot in front of the other. But what you're not going to do is stress about the outcome because trying will always get you to the next level. And we don't know what the next level may be because we're not in control of that. But yours is just to keep moving forward. Another one that I do like is, you don't have to have it all figured out to move forward. Um,
Exactly.
but let me stop with all my quotes because I have so many. I'm very
I like them. You can carry on.
much into like my daily mantras because when I wake up, I have all my like affirmations or my mantra for the day. But they just help me because even with myself, when I have setbacks, those are the things I have to remind myself about. But the main one of like, you don't have to have it all figured out to move forward is a big one because especially when you find yourself in uncharted territory, it's
Mhm.
uncomfortable. And, of course, the natural sort of reaction would be to go back to what's comfortable. But what's comfortable is actually not going to take you to the next level. So you're in this weird,
Exactly.
awkward phase. So I'm always like reminding myself, like, you don't have to have it all figured out to move forward, but you have to keep moving forward. So I read that like every day.
Yeah.
Um, let's talk about the architecture industry and what are some of the changes that you see coming to that industry in the future. I know that you did flag AI in your show notes, so I am interested to hear a little bit more about that because I really loved what you said about AI not being able to replicate the humanness of what it can from a technical perspective.
Exactly. So obviously AI has just become a huge thing with whatever industry you are in, and specifically more so in the tech environments. So with architecture, we've obviously moved on to computers. We are no longer hand drawing. So a lot of what we do and a lot of programs that now we can use and we do as architects have access to them are AI generated programs, and it's not always a bad thing to have. If you actually have the skill to use them, it's is again a good thing. And I know like I sound like I'm taking every negative and turning it positive, but it really is. It's not I don't feel is bad to have, but it is an economical challenge because for instance, someone that would do renderings, which is like photorealistic images of a building that you have designed, I can actually take that into an AI program and I can generate those images or anyone else. So instead of giving it to someone that does visual arts and graphicals, graphic interpretations of your building,
Mm.
um, including architects. So I also do a lot of my renderings myself. So instead of doing that, someone can actually literally like sketch out a plan and be able to put it onto an AI generated program. And that can in turn take away jobs, which I feel is does negatively impact the economy in
Mm.
terms of jobs being lost. But at the same time, if you do have the right skill set for it, and if you are able or willing to learn it, it can positively impact you as well. So if I'm learning these programs, then I'm able to use them in a way that, as an architect, I want to use them. So again, bringing down those AI generated images to more human scale, to more um, livable scenarios because they can get very dramatic. So that yeah, yeah, they can. So
So did they spit out like unrealistic images, would you say, unrealistic designs or?
so you can literally say to a program, here's a building. You can literally give it a rectangle block, and you can say, here's a building. It's now use timber and concrete and put it in the middle of a forest, and it will literally spit out that image for you. So it is extremely interesting, and it can be quite scary when you actually like giving it these commands and it's bringing these images to life. But at the same time, it's just so interesting because if you know how to use those tools, it will help you so much as well with time saving.
Mm.
um, but at the same time, when you are doing so, if you're using other like programs to generate those images yourself, you're literally going into the detail of putting chairs, tables, beams where they need to be, window placement, that type of human scale and proportion, I don't feel can be replicated by AI. So that is something that I feel we as architects have much more say over than AI does.
I I don't know, Yasmin. I do think that you turning negative into positive, but I think that, no, but I do think that it's necessary because a lot of people, I think, when they hear AI, they do think job losses and everything. However, you've mentioned a valid point of time saving, and when an AI can at least do some of those mundane tasks, you can probably produce a product that you probably didn't anticipate is probably going to be at another at a much more exceptional level now, because maybe you don't need to focus on the granularity of certain things because AI can do that for you. So I do think it's important to have more of a positive outlook on AI. So I am with you when it comes to having more of a positive outlook on AI. But I'm sure like the AI critics will probably have something to say
Yeah.
about that. Um, so, what advice would you have? I would give two groups of people. One would be anyone who's studying architecture at the moment. I mean, you've called it architecture, but to me, it does sound like, as I said, it seems like it just was your purpose because it's pulled you so far. And I do think that it with purposes, like I felt the exact same with law. Trust me, I've wanted to quit multiple times. I've always been like, I don't know if it's for me, da 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 da. But I do think that your purpose is what's supposed to challenge you the most in life. That's your character building or developing experience that you're supposed to go through, and you actually choose this. So that's what I think. That's my philosophy. And then the second group of people would be architects who want to also, open up their own architectural firm.
So the first bit of advice for someone wanting to study architecture is you really, really do have to be passionate about it. You can't just go into it closed-minded and think, because I came across quite a few of people along the way that thought, okay, I'm going to do architecture because architects make a lot of money, and that's not the case at all. It's 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 not
The
true,
money is
but
good for a little bit until you realize that you need something more than money to pull you.
100%. So that's why I say you have to be passionate about it, because if you're not passionate about it, about anything, it doesn't have to be just architecture, but about anything. If you are living your life without having a sense of passion for what you do and without it making you happy, then you're not really going to be in the space that you want to be. You're probably going to be more negative. You're probably going to have like not want to do more in life because you feel like you're constantly drawn down by this thing that's you're actually not passionate about, but you're carrying on and you trying to make it work, although it's maybe not meant for you. So I think passion is a huge thing that you need to have. And also, if you feel like architecture is a degree that you want to study, I would suggest going to firms and job shadowing, ask the right questions, or I say right questions, but actually ask any questions that even scare you, maybe questions that you don't even want to hear the answer because you feel like it is going to be a bad answer and it's going to throw you off. Rather ask it, knowing that you going into this degree, going into this field, not blindsided. Um, and then for advice that I would give for someone wanting to start their own business, that was the second part, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, is like my sister said to me and my husband as well, like just go out and do it. Like if you're never going to do it, it's not going to come to you. If you constantly going to, and I'm not saying be silly about it either, because you can't go out and literally like not have anything to fall back on. So make sure you do have something to fall back on financially in order to carry you for at least like 3, 4 months. And in those 3, 4 months, network. Like don't stop networking, because you never know. This one knows that one, that knows an auntie, that knows an uncle, that knows whoever that needs an architect. So networking is extremely important, and just give it your all. Don't now say, okay, I've decided to become an entrepreneur And the reason I decided to do so is because I actually want to spend time with my family. So let me just sit back, relax, and spend time with my family. No, you actually need to go out there, push, so that you know once you've got those jobs secured, those jobs are going to be the reason that you can spend time. And I keep saying family because to me, family is very important. And even hobbies, spend time on your hobbies or whatever it is that makes you happy. So definitely take the leap and prepare yourself mentally to take that leap. The right support system obviously does help. And network. Don't ever stop networking. One thing that I've actually always done from when I did my internship, so in architecture, we had to study our undergrad for 3 years, do an internship year, which was the fourth year. Fifth year was honors, and sixth year was your master's, and then 2 years experience before you write your like professional board exam to become a professional architect. So from literally my lecturers up until my ex-boss, I have kept in contact with everyone. So networking is so important. Don't ever lose your contacts. Don't ever burn bridges. The world is so small. You never know who you're going to meet again, or who you might even need help from, or who might need your help. So yeah, those are the two things. Just be brave and take the leap for yourself and network. That's what will keep you going.
I love that. Yasmin, it has been such an honor and so much fun having you on the podcast. There were so many great takeaway points. I love your mindset. And, I also like having you in my circle. I mean, when I saw that you started JY Studio, I was like, I love the fact that you're in my circle and you're doing something similar to what I'm doing. I think it's important to surround yourself with like-minded people. So it does keep me going too. I see like, okay, like, someone that I know has also stepped out on faith and they're doing what they want to do. And I've definitely seen that change, that sparkle back in your eyes, which is good because again, it's important. We're here to do more than just work. We're here to exist. We're here to find our purpose. And yeah, I really love that you are back in alignment with your purpose. Thank you so much for your time on the podcast. I really think that our listeners will find your insights quite helpful. And yeah, I don't know if you have anything else that you would like to leave with the listeners who have listened all the way up until the end.
I just want to say thank you so much for having me on here. I really appreciate you reaching out to me and reconnecting with me. It's been amazing chatting to you and just catching up with you as well. And people like you are what inspires me, people like me as well. So I just want you to know that as well. You
Still
going
seems
out and
like
doing
you're
all of
paying
this. Um, so yeah, just wanted to say thanks, and whoever's looking for an architect, reach out to me. I do work all over the world, which is also really nice. I'm based in South Africa, but um, I have worked in Mauritius, in the UK, um, and with my previous company, I worked with on projects in LA, Miami. So I definitely am willing to broaden my knowledge on other spaces. So yeah, it was great being here, and thank you again for the opportunity. I really, really loved it.
You're welcome, and well done to you for doing your first podcast again, stepping out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
It was it was a really great conversation. Thanks to everyone who's listened to the podcast. You heard it there from Yasmin. She's looking to take her company global. So her details will be mentioned in the description of this episode. So if you want to reach out to her for all things architecture, please do. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of The Lantern, and we will see you on the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Seize the light within yourself with love, The Lantern.